Hey there, welcome to podcast number 4 in this B2B Sales podcast series. In the last one, we talked about the purpose of that first email or the first call that you make, which is essentially to get the prospect to hop on, to set up a meeting with you so you can have this conversation with the prospect. The purpose was not to make the sale, and I give you a few examples. The ultimate purpose surely is to make the sale, obviously, but the purpose of that first email, the first email is going to be, you can call that a grand success if you're able to get the prospect to book time on your calendar so they want to have this conversation. That is the purpose. That is what you're trying to achieve through that first email or the first reach out or the first phone call. Now let's pick up from where we left off. So this is podcast number 4 in this series, and again I recommend that you watch them in sequence so you get context to the conversation that we are having here. Okay. So let me share the screen. Okay, we were talking about again the purpose of that first email. Let's continue from there. You send that first email, and then you're able to get the prospect. They book time on your calendar. What do you do at that point? We're gonna talk about that, but before we do that, we talked about tools in terms of sales prospecting tools, Sales Navigator from LinkedIn, and a couple of other tools. Those are two ways, at least two ways of prospecting, but there's more. I want to add some more that we actually do, so you know exactly what some of the companies that are in the business of selling software SaaS startups are doing. It'll help, because if I had known this 2 months ago, it would have saved some of the time I had to spend in learning. So the purpose behind these podcasts is to share these learnings as I go, and as we make adjustments and tweaks and accommodations to what it is that we're doing, I try to come back and share the experience again, so you know how things were and how they have changed and how they are actually moving forward. Um, Content creation. So these are, sales tools, and Sales Navigator are a couple of ways of prospecting. But I want to make sure I was sharing it. But you don't have to do a number of things. I thought when we started selling, you can send emails. Here is the ideal scenario. You go send emails to 10 people. 8 of them respond to that email. 6 of them are super interested. 5 of them sign up, and then you're a millionaire the next day, right? Well, welcome to reality. Now I know that that's not how it works. Uh, there was an element of exaggeration there, but I have to tell you that the learnings have been plentiful in the last 6 to 8 weeks. How many you send a fair number of emails during the course of any given week, depending on how you want to do your reach outs. What percentage of them end up in inbox is not exactly in your control, even though you can do your best to increase that likelihood, the likelihood of those emails showing up in those inboxes, and we've talked about it a fair bit. And then you have to pick the interest of your prospects, that they have to respond to your emails, hop on a call, have the conversation, and then you continue, and then you close the sale. I mean, there's a lot of steps there. And none of those steps is any easier than the other. It takes a lot of effort, energy, patience, diligence, passion, commitment, and any other adjectives that you can think of. Please feel free to add them there. So you want to do the best you can every step of the way. Prospecting through sales tools, through something like Sales Navigator and LinkedIn, are some of those options. Are they adequate? Nothing's adequate, right? You're going to have to do everything that you have to do, given the time that you have available for doing those sorts of things. One of the other things that we've done that a while, even if inadvertently so. And what I mean by that is, we as it turns out, we've been doing a number of things out of our own interest, but they're actually starting to help us when it comes to prospecting time. We did not do any of those things, or most of those things, almost all of those things, I should say, with the core intent of prospecting, or doing B2B prospecting. Because, up until early part of this year, we had all we had were B2C products, and we're going to continue to have them. We're going to continue to improve our B2C products and add more, but we also have B2B in the mix right now. So we didn't have a need to even think about B2B type of prospecting. So we could not have possibly done any of those things that we actually did with the intent, or quote unquote ulterior motive, if that's even the right word to use here, of actually making a sale through prospecting. What are some of those things? Let's talk about them. The first thing, again, moving these boxes is not terribly difficult, but I have to click each one of them, group them, and move, and it's going to take time. So I'm just going to, continue with the diagram, and actually, because I can, after it actually is going to take a minute or two, and I don't want to spend that time here. So let's continue the green shapes here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to draw an arrow from here to here. I'm going to say content creation. Um, what are some examples of content creation? I mean, it again, in today's day and age, there's a long laundry list of what you need to do. So I'm going to list just some of what we do. Blogging. Some of us like to write, so we do we do write. So blogging on, I mean, we do it. We create articles on LinkedIn, create articles on Medium, and other platforms. If you want to check that out, or if there's other platforms that come to your mind, in other words, right? So let me actually. Tool is okay. That's great. I'm able to increase it. Let me actually make it even bigger. Content creation, blogging. The next item, actually, let me not group it right now. YouTube channel. Now here you have to do shots and I guess the horizontal videos as usual. Uh, we don't spend much time here, to be honest. We just post it for search index SEO purposes. But the least amount of time we don't spend, as much time as we would like to there, simply because it's a different, it is important, unquestionably. We want to grow the channel. So we post the content, but we haven't spent our energies in doing everything you would need to do to grow a LinkedIn channel. Each of this takes a lot of time. 90% of our time is spent in engineering to actually building these solutions, with very little time spent on other things. We're trying to make those adjustments right now, because we've done a lot of engineering work this year in 2023. For the next 3 to 6 months, we are shifting our focus from a roadmap standpoint, which is completely outside the purpose of realm of this podcast. But I'm sharing it for what it's worth, because we believe in the interest of complete transparency, even when we don't have to disclose information. We do, because our intent is to help other people who might have to wade through the same type of challenges. So the next 3 months at least, our hope is to focus as much on sales as much as engineering, if not more on sales. Now, whether the reality turns out to be that, only time has to tell, and I'll keep you posted. So the YouTube channel is no less important, correct? So we post our content there. We just don't spend enough time improving the description and tagging and all of those kinds of things to actually have it be found. Something in the list of things to do, just haven't done it yet. But we still post our a fair bit of our content, not all of it, like on LinkedIn, on YouTube as well. So YouTube channel, blogging, that was content creation, right? Of course, there's other things, Instagram. I'm just gonna put we do some on very little. I think the last time we were on Pinterest, I cannot even remember when that was, right? So you get the gist of it. So you're gonna have to find a way to create content, and you create content that's. I want to increase the size of this without. This is, I think, a bug. I mean, which two? Okay, let me try it now. Okay, maybe I have to select the correct shape. Okay, let's copy paste this here. Okay, what else, right? Blogging, creating content on YouTube, shorts and horizontal, Instagram, Pinterest, posting it, and then let's come to podcasting, right? We podcast on different platforms, um, and also the types of podcasts, multiple formats and types. What I mean by that is, majority of the podcasts we had posted so far, it runs into hundreds of them. Certainly go to apple .snowpal.com or spotify.snowpal.com to subscribe, to follow our podcast and learn with us all aspects of engineering. 90 some percent of those podcasts happen to have been predominantly technical podcasts, architecture, design, and a lot of it is code related. But I've had folks ask me to expand the scope of this podcast to include other facets of software development, and that's what we've started to do. Now we talking about B2B sales, right, which is something I had never done in a podcast before. Um, there were some podcasts that deviated from the core aspects of engineering, but they were few and far between. But now I'm doing some more because people have asked for it, so that you're going to have more of these podcasts that talk about how to run a company, startups, SaaS, engineering, product management, sales, recruitment, and the whole gamut, if you will. Uh, Podcasting is one of the ways to facilitate content creation, because you're sharing your knowledge, whether it's paid podcasts. Our podcasts at this point are free. Hopefully at some point we enable monetization, uh, but then gets picked up on search in a variety of different ways. So you need to create rich content however you want to create them. You might like to write, you might like to create videos, you might like to do, you have a YouTube channel, you might like to do podcasting, audio podcasting, video podcasting. And by multiple formats, I mean a few different things, right? I'm going to say audio podcasting, I'm going to say video podcasting, I'm going to say solo podcasting, and then collaborative podcasting. Of course, these two are in their own category, and these two, solo and collaborate, are our own. I can obviously change them here. Bothers me that they're a flat list of bullets. Okay, multiple. Let me do that. Multiple formats, multiple types. Using those words loosely. Uh, so solo podcasting is just one of us sharing our knowledge, looking at a camera and recording audio or video. Collaborative podcasting is what we've started doing recently, reaching out to other folks to hop on our podcast and having a very interesting conversation on different aspects of engineering and software development and running a company. So that, by virtue of doing that, we have a way to, it's a win-win, because our guests are able to tap into our network and we're able to tap into our guests' network. It's just helping each other essentially. Podcasting. What else do we do by way of content creation? Now, there's some other things we've done outside engineering, meaning tried to write some creative scripts, something that's work-related humor, and published it in a few other on a few other platforms. We've not done that necessarily very consistently, which we hope to change moving forward. I'm just going to say essentially Meta, right? With Meta platforms, I guess we could say Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and more. So I'm going to remove that here. I'm just going to say others. I'm going to say WordPress, etc. Right? So these are this is by virtue of content creation. Now let's keep going. I think we've talked enough about that. Let's say I'm going to go on here. I'm going to say campaigns. This is a broad topic. I did one podcast on this a long time ago. So I'm going to say campaigns on Meta, Google, where else? LinkedIn, on YouTube. By Google, I just mean google.com, yeah, which is why I'm writing YouTube separately, even though it's all part of the same. Okay, what do I need to do to increase? Okay. Takes a few clicks, but that's all right. Campaigns. There's a lot more areas where when it comes to campaigns, but again, it depends on your budget, right? So we also have done campaigns on Apple App Store for our mobile app, because our mobile app can be is used for managing projects for folks from all different walks of life. And we are also on the Play Store, Google app, and we have paid features. Most of the features on the app are actually free, but there's a handful of paid features on our courses and the education platform. The courses are available on our mobile devices as well. So definitely do check it out. Go to ios.snowpal.com, android.snowpal.com, or just learn.snowpal.com if you want to go to the web. We place ads on, we have, we use our budget carefully to place ads and create campaigns on these different platforms, and each of them is couldn't be any more different from the other. So you need to get yourself acclimated with each of these platforms, the campaign managers. The B2C tools that a lot of the companies provide, including these companies, is actually quite easy to use, really real easy to use, as we all know. But the B2B versions of what they provide, is it just as easy to use? I'm not so sure. I'll let you be the judge of all of these tools and their campaign managers. But our experience has been that they are not, necessarily easy to use, and they're very different from each other as well. So there's a learning curve as to how much time you have to spend in getting these campaigns done correctly. So just a quick recap. We talked about prospecting tools. We talked about Sales Navigator, which is also a prospecting tool, but slightly different from the automation heavy prospecting tools. We talked about content creation. We've talked about campaigns under content creation. We talked about a number of different ways to create content. And then we're talking about campaigns. Now, there is, probably one more thing I would like to add here. The one thing we've not done enough of, and we want to do, just haven't had the time to do this. Going to events, right? There are so many of these events happening all the time, depending on the city you live in, right? There was, I think, recently, there's an AWS reInvent, isn't that what it's called? Event. AWS has a summit, I believe. Our APIs are deployed on the EC2 and AWS infrastructure. So you can go to aws.snowpal.com to check out our APIs, sign up, get the API key, go through the free trial, and then realize that this is going to help you immensely in churning out applications and going to market much sooner. So you will, hopefully hit one of us up and have this conversation. Now, uh, we are on AWS now, but again, we've had clients ask us, "Hey, can you support this on Azure or GCP?" So that's another fish to fry for another day. Alongside licensing and APIs, alongside selling them as services, backends as services. We've also had clients ask us if we could actually license, sell commercial licenses to our APIs, something we had not originally thought about. But given the number of people who are asking for it, we've actually started to explore that option. And now our APIs are available to be purchased as commercial licenses. So if you did that, then you can run them on your own infrastructure. It'll be very seamless to run it on AWS, but we want to make it easy enough for you to run it on other cloud platforms as well. So the reason I mentioned that, it's a bit of a segue or a digression, but I want to say that attending these events, all kinds of events, there's AWS events, there's Mongo events, like MongoDB events, uh, Apple events, etc., etc. I guess one etc. is enough. I know I said it twice. I'm sorry. Oops. Oh, come on. Okay, take every opportunity to attend these events. The only tricky part is they are not all. I mean, a lot of them are priced. You got to pay for it, and some of them are pretty expensive, and they don't happen in your city. So you're gonna have to fly out or take the train or drive. So there are a lot of logistics and logistical issues that you may have to confront. But if you have a team, you have the time, you have the resource to actually do this. I think it's certainly worthwhile for them to actually make those trips. I believe there was, API Days was a recent conference that happened in France, if I'm not wrong. I'm just going to tag API Days on this podcast. I would have loved to go there. I've never been to France, and I've only heard beautiful things. I know it's probably a beautiful country with lovely people. And not that I needed one more reason to go there, but there was API Days. But again, we could not make that happen this year. Hopefully next year, or maybe API Days comes to the US and it'll be not too far. And sometimes, given how big America is, maybe someplace else is closer too. I don't know. uh, anyway, so making it attending these events is going to be really really cool. It's going to be exciting, interesting. You have avenues to socialize and chat with people, so that'll be pretty cool as well. So those are, I guess, I was just looking at where we are at into this podcast. Those are a fair number of tools and processes and methodologies. We've talked about a number of these things, in the podcast thus far. Before I end it, I want to see if I've missed anything else. Maybe I'll add a couple of more things before I end. The whole process of sales is both interesting, or exciting and intimidating at the same time. It's going to test your abilities to do many things. As a developer, some of us are we work on a single language, in a single platform or framework. There's others where we enjoy doing working on multiple platforms. There's no right or wrong answer. You can pick what works for you. Personally, me and professionally, and a lot of my team members, we work on multiple different stacks at the same time on any given week. That's what we enjoy doing. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, right? There's no right or wrong answer here. We enjoy doing that. We work on numerous different stacks, and our ecosystem is built on a variety of different languages and platforms and frameworks because we choose the right tool for the job. Just because we have a hammer, we don't treat everything as a nail. But I know companies that are as good as ours that use a single language and a framework. It works well for them. It's totally fine. Now, why am I mentioning that in the context of sales? The reason I mentioned that is, if you are not part of the dev team and you're doing the sale, you're prospecting, you're reaching out to folks, and you're doing all of these things that we mentioned and talked about. How much understanding the salesperson needs, it depends on the team, the product, the platform, the company, the culture, the paradigms, the salesperson, and the dev teams, and a number of other factors. But as a developer who's actually also doing getting into sales right now, I have an interest in knowing how things exactly work, because I might be talking to a client. They may have a very specific question. Now I can say, hey, you know what, I can come back with an answer in the subsequent call. But then setting up that subsequent call might be just as difficult a task as the first one was. So you don't want to, not have answers to questions you wish you had answers to, if it's related to your product and if the question is a fair enough question. So you want to be prepared to the extent possible, right? Again, each of us has our own skills. We gravitate towards certain aspects of what we do, and that comes naturally to us, and other things do not come that naturally, so we're not going to be just as strong. It's completely understandable, but I'm just saying we all have to get out of our comfort zones and do what it takes. So let me give you an example as far as sales, as a developer who's actually also doing sales. um, the first time I went to these calls, after the prospect was on the call, I didn't know what to expect. So I was talking a lot of technology, a whole lot of technology, right? In the first 5, 10, 15 minutes. And then as we had more calls, we realized that maybe that's not the way we want to have these conversations happen. We want to speak less and have the other party do most of the talking. That's when we learn about their problems and try to see how we can sort of customize our solutions to fit their needs. By doing all of the talking, we're never going to figure that out, are we? So that was a learning. But that learning comes sometimes by making mistakes. They say the real smart people learn from other people's mistakes. Unfortunately, I'm not there. I try to learn from my own mistakes, and sometimes I do the same mistakes twice. But if I did twice, I'm okay. But if I did it more than twice, I'm not happy. I'm not a happy camper. So whatever the process you want to follow to improve, based on the previous meetings and sessions you had with your prospects, make mental notes, document them. If you like to write it down or draw diagrams, as not so pretty as those diagrams might be, even though this diagram is not a pretty diagram, right? I'll be honest, I can accept it. But seeing these things visually reinforces it for me. If I had written them in a Word document or on Google Docs, it doesn't make the same impact. These separations, the shapes of these, these boxes, or these shapes that are different, even though they're not particularly different for any good reason, simply that they're different tells me and helps me jog my memory at a later point of time. So you do what you need to do to make yourself productive, but just be aware that you are going to be surprised when you go to these calls and conversations. Be open-minded, accept what your tool does well, accept what it doesn't do well, accept what you can possibly do differently. Make those adjustments. Nothing is etched in stone, certainly not if you're a startup, because you will be, I guarantee, you're going to be asked questions that you never ever ever thought about. Being uh, we've had a lot of different scenarios, situations before we got on these initial conversations about selling our back end services, which is a core part of what we do. Little did we expect a lot of the companies and the clients asking us that they would want to license it, and that would be the only way they would even want to engage. Now we could say nope, we don't want to do it, right? Not difficult, but we could do it, but may or may not make sense. If we see the rationale behind why the client is asking the question, and we know now why they do, we've actually said, you know what, that makes sense. We totally see that. Now we are happy to license our solutions. So you're going to have to make these changes. And some of these are, trust me, seismic changes. You go to the field, you figure this out, come back to the dev team and say this, don't be surprised if folks freak out. If the same person as me wearing two different hats, if I wore the development hat after I wore the sales hat and said, sure, why not, to the prospect who asked that we actually sell commercial licenses, I would react, I would freak out as the same person wearing this other hat. So if it's another person, it's completely justifiable that they do, because that's not what was on the table. We never had those conversations. So you need to make sure you educate your teams outside the sales teams to be aware of this, because like someone told me the other day, everyone is in the business of sales in a company. Whether they're actively doing the selling or not is the only difference, but they are in the business of sales. Because how good is it if you made a fantastic product that you never could sell? It's absolutely useless, right? So the developer, the architect, the product manager, the project manager, the scrum master, the dev manager, the director of engineering, the VP, the sales engineer, the marketing person, the human resources, legal, documentation, tech writers, everybody, creative team, everybody is in the business of selling. Just that they contribute differently to selling than a direct salesperson does. That's the only difference. That is a big difference, but that is the only difference. So make sure your team is aligned, so everybody marches towards making that first sale happen, and the second sale, and the third sale, and the thousandth sale happen. I think that's basically it. I want to wrap this series here. I mean, there is a lot more to talk for sure, but what I'm going to do is call this done for now, and then we can pick this back up as we've done a bit more sale. We've been on the field a lot more, and learned more things. Or I come back tomorrow and I think of something else that I completely forgot to talk about. I might end up doing another recording. Hopefully you like it. If you do like it, I don't know, they don't say this for podcasts, but I'm just going to say it. I think we get the reach by folks actually liking, sharing, commenting, yada yada yada. So if you found value in these sessions, if you learned a thing or two, we would appreciate it if you just give us a shout out on LinkedIn or other platforms that you might use. That would be much appreciated. Till next time, thank you.